All right, this week on AIS, we have Brian Gottlieb. He is the founder of Tundraland, also renewal by Anderson for Greater Wisconsin, jacuzzis down in Arizona. This guy has done a lot in our industry, kind of made it to the finish line here. We talk about everything in leadership, building your company, process versus having the right people. Really good conversation, really refreshing conversation with a very successful entrepreneur in our space. So give it a like, give it a share, give it a follow, and we'll see you on the other side. I mean, founder of Tundraland, renewal of Greater Wisconsin. I know you guys had some business down in Florida as well.
Arizona.
Kind of in Arizona.
Yep. Okay. So we had our Tundraland business as our first business, which was in Wisconsin, which, as you know, I started it in 2009 on a plastic folding table with $3,000 in cash. So I'm sure a lot of your viewers and listeners can relate to that. It wasn't like there was a lot of other $3,000 to come behind it to help fill the void. It had to work. But out of that also grew then the Arizona bath business called Jacuzzi Bath Remodel, and then 2 renewal by Anderson locations in Wisconsin as well.
That's incredible. And so was it Tundraland that had over 600 employees and was kind of the father company?
It was the group, all companies combined had a total employee count of about 600 people. Yeah. Split up between the different brands. Yep.
My gosh. So how did you get into contracting? Was this something you just fell upon and just happened to excel?
So years and years ago, I used to work with my hands. I used to build and do things with my hands. And when I was about 30 some odd years old, I hurt my back and I had to have back surgery, and it took me out of the ability to work in the field, which I thought, my life is just ruined, right? But I started selling instead. And then my career really took off. So I focused on more the front end of the business versus the back end. Fortunately, I was able to build a nice career in sales and sales management. And then I started my own business consulting for various home improvement companies across the nation doing sales training. What's interesting about that, Ryan, is in that process, I got to visit hundreds of companies, and I kept a journal on if I ever start a business, these are the things I'm definitely going to do, but also these are the things I'm never going to do. So it was kind of like my playbook. So when I opened up Tundraland, I thought, okay, we're going to build a different type of business here. And that's what we did.
I love that. So that's ironically kind of how we started KHP in a way. I worked for various contractors. I saw the good and I saw the ugly. And we kind of were like, let's just do all the good and let's leave the ugly to the side, you know?
Yeah.
And it's worked so far pretty well for us as well.
Yeah. So, it was based on the premise, because in 2009, if you remember back in 2008, a lot of people didn't know they were going to even keep their job. It was the economy was in a mess. And that created an opportunity where there were a lot of really talented people looking for work. On the same hand, people that worked for places for 15, 20 years lost their job. And I wanted to create a different type of business. I wanted to create more than just a home improvement company. I wanted to build a brand that was woven into the fabric of the communities that we serve. And if I reflect back on that the mission statement of to do well and to do good, which is what we live by, it truly set our course for success. Because if you define what is the purpose of business, we define it as it's to make a decent profit decently. And we do that by taking care of our customers, our employees, and the communities that we serve.
Yeah. And you also mentioned when we were talking on the phone about what you would have said Tundraland was. We were a marketing agency that, happened to do home services compared to now.
Yeah.
And tell me
right.
that shift and to
Sure.
where. Yeah.
Sure. In the early days, if you asked me what business we were in, I would have said, well, we're a construction company. Once I got up to 30, 40, 50 employees, if you said, well, what's my business? I would have said, well, we're a sales and marketing company that happens to be in home improvements. But that's not what really allowed us to grow. We shifted our mindset to say, who are we really? And when you think about when we bring in a call center agent, we teach them how to answer the phone. When we bring in a sales rep, we teach them a sales model. We teach installers how to build. We even teach homeowners why they should choose us instead of everybody else. We're not a sales and marketing company. We're a training organization. And as a training organization, we had to decide, what does that mean? Who are some great training organizations that we can model our business off of? And how do we just do more of that? And when you do that, by the way, often in the construction industry, and especially when you're smaller, it feels like you're fighting over talent. You're trying to get, who's got the most experience? How do I get them in the door? And you're kind of what I would call in the red ocean of business, where it's very, very competitive. And if you become a training organization, you're no longer held hostage to rules in the industry. I don't have to find experienced people. I just have to find passionate people. I can hire people for the right reasons, for culture, and I can teach them the other things that make them successful.
I love that. We call where we're at right now as a company, we call it the Sahara Desert. It is just, it can be dry and lonely, and gosh, because we're like right under that 10 million mark. And it's just trying, like, you have enough resources to make some movement, right? But you don't have enough to really take another calculated risk. And so it all comes down to people. And this segues perfectly into the first thing I want to talk about, people versus process.
Yeah.
And obviously scaling a company and multiple companies as you have to the size they were, it takes people to get there, right? And it takes good people that buy into the vision. But it also takes process to standardize.
It does. And by the way, if I could rewind and do anything over again in my early days where I was going from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 to $20 million, is that we would plug a system in and we'd grow out of it before we even fully implemented it. But what would happen is, the great illusion of communication is thinking it was accomplished. We would teach something and then, it wasn't really quite going that way. And there were iterations of it. And I think if you're a training organization or even at any size organization, process is important. And if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. You really have to have that mentality that if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. Because if your hope is to, unless if the owner wants to be a bottleneck and make every decision, but that's certainly not scalable, then you have to be able to empower people to make decisions. And to do that, they have to have something they can turn back to and say, okay, what is that process? What's written down? Let me check.
Yeah, they need a true north. They need to know where
That's
they
right.
stand. Yeah, in decision making. So when you're, and this is speaking from being in the thick of it, right?
Yep.
We're just under 20 employees, and there's a lot of ways to measure efficiency. There's a revenue per employee head. There's many different ways. We have everything standardized, right? And the same thing you're talking about, how you implement a process and you're iterating, and then you grow out of that process and you churn it through. So where's the happy medium there? Is it more of a playbook and you're giving people parameters inside of their job title to have the independence to make decisions? Or is it iron fist, this is the KHB way, or this is the Tundraland way, and don't deviate?
Right, and that's a great question. So if you think about it, when I ask people, what is the difference between a leader and a manager? I often get all kinds of comments, right? All kinds of opinions. Some people think, well, leaders show you what to do, managers tell you what to do, and all that. But if you really think about the definitions, it's managers are responsible for the day-to-day complexities inside of a business, ensuring systems and processes are being followed, and leaders drive change. Inside of a business, by the way, that's often the same person. Sometimes we have to wear our management hat. Sometimes we have to wear our leadership hat. So what successful leaders do is they have both levers of influence and levers of control. And I'll give you an example, okay? We have 6 kids, right? And when the kids are little, and if they have a giant party at our house in our backyard, and there are 50 kids around coming over the neighborhood, we don't want to put them in the backyard unless if there's a fence around the backyard. Otherwise, they're going to run off, and we won't be parent of the year. So we have to contain them with a fence. That's a lever of control, just like a business needs. But if all I had was a fence and nothing for the kids to play with, that would be more like a prison, and that's not fun either. So you want a swing set, you want a bouncy house. So you want levers of influence so you can influence fun while at the same time containing things with levers of control. Businesses need both. And the more a business understands what is a lever of influence, what is a lever of control, and how do we implement that in our business, what you do as you build this thing out, if you think about it, your goal is how do you get every single person inside of your business to think like an owner, right? To drive an ownership mentality. Because, and I think a lot of that when you talk about like KPIs and reporting, you and I can get together, we can smoke a cigar, we can come up with the grandest yearly plan in the world, right? But we want those numbers to live with each individual inside of the business, boiled down to a daily KPI, regardless of department, so that they take an ownership mentality and they can speak to their numbers versus being spoken to.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And we do something called goal setting review with our company, where it's like a weekly KPI overview, and they get to measure themselves. Like they always know where they stand. And I like the levers of influence, because in my mind, the first thing that came in is either personal recognition or financial compensation. Like as far as building an environment around someone to motivate them. Now, I know there's more to that, and it goes deeper than just that. How do you think you can motivate someone to be the CEO of their job position and one, not drive your overhead through the roof, right? Paying out, if I was paying everyone here $500,000 a year, they'd all be pretty happy, right? But obviously that's not feasible. What levers of influence do you see drive confidence and passion into that employee?
Yeah, well, I think the first lever of influence that a leader has is the idea that, I'm going to go back to my kids for a second, and when my kids were on a bicycle with training wheels and they're trying to learn on 2 wheels, I don't just take the training wheels off and say, go pedal. They would probably fall. They don't believe they can even ride on 2 wheels. Myself as a parent, I have to run behind them with my hand on the seat after I take the wheels off, and I have to say, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and then let go, and they say, look at me, Daddy, I can do it. So it's the idea that belief is transferable, that your child didn't believe they could do it, but you did, and you transferred that belief to them. In business, it's the same way. How do you create how do you create CEOs inside of your business? The first thing is they have to believe they can be that. And there's that thing called fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And when people start in new roles and new jobs, things they've never done before, they have self-doubt. It's a leader's responsibility to help them beyond that doubt, but at the same time, supply them tools and capabilities and resources. You've heard the expression, you have to have everybody in the right seat on the bus. That's true, but they have to be in the right seat with the right tools. And what I found over the years is by giving people a daily number to report to. And the interesting thing about our industry is every single department and every single person can be boiled down to a daily target that they can speak to. This was my daily target. This was my actual. And as they start to, over time, realize that, wow, I know what I need to do to hit these daily numbers with consistency, their self-confidence just goes through the roof. And that's how you build an ownership mentality.
Yeah, it's the little wins daily that they can track and find and feel the success of hitting that goal.
That's right.
One of the core, like I say, it wasn't a core value when we started, but we did, a vision traction organizer, from the EOS. That was one of the core, really, framework around how we built our company. And we were talking about the niche, and we're like, what is it, right? And one of the things we came up with was freedom to transform. Yeah. Right. Because, my background, I'm from the trades, just like yourself. I started in the field. I was a laborer, worked all the way up to now, having our own construction company. Same thing with my business partner. And the one thing that we've been given is the freedom to transform. Right. Now, a lot of those tools were something we had to learn. Right. We didn't have a mentor telling us this is what you do, and then after that you should do this. But that's the same thing we want to give our employees. Right. We want to give them the freedom to transform and fill that role and fill the shoes and give them the tools to be successful. So I love the way you frame that and the levers of
influence. The freedom, by the way, and the freedom to make a mistake. It's okay to be wrong. Just don't be wrong for long. How about that? Just let's not be wrong for long. But I'll share with you. So if you were to go to a Toyota manufacturing plant, what you would see in Toyota on their assembly line is a cord at every single station. It's actually called an andon cord. And what would happen is, let's say the person that's assembling the headlights in the Toyota, if it's not fitting, they can pull the cord and the entire line stops. Because usually what happens is the fact that the light isn't fitting inside of the car, that's not the problem. That's the symptom of a bigger problem. And the real problem is further down the line. So it empowers everybody to say, hold on, we need to pull this andon cord, and we need to address the root cause of the problem. When we talk about systems and we talk about processes inside of a business, often, is a low closing average, is that a symptom or is it a problem? It's more of a symptom of a bigger problem inside of the business. And we often spend more time fixing the symptom and not really addressing the problem. I believe the key in business is to separate people from process. because people are very tied into when something goes wrong. And it's important that the leader says, hey, we have the right people. We have to figure out where is our process broken so this doesn't happen again. Otherwise, people will be very defensive and they won't share with you where the real challenges inside of the business are. Because to your point, Ryan, you need people to be able to speak up and say, you know what? We should be doing it this way because this is something that's wrong inside of our business and my voice matters.
Yeah. And that's something that, being a leader, it's an elusive term. It can fit many different boxes.
Sure.
And I know this is actually going to be one of your keynotes. I think at Pinnacle, you're talking about the 11 levers of leadership.
Correct.
I believe.
Yeah. That's right.
What do you feel is kind of the nitty gritty values of a leader? How, are they built? Are they born that way? What are they doing to get more educated? And how can we let other contractors know what a good leader looks like and what an effective leader looks like?
Yeah. So if we say, what is leadership, right? Well, leadership is influence, right? And there are lots of different ways that you can influence, right? You can influence with a hammer, or you can go beyond the hammer, right? So there are a lot of, and there are different. I think leaders come in all shapes and sizes. You have the engineer type leader, you have the inspirational leader, you have the manager leader, and I think what's most important is people have to be their authentic self. They have to lead first and foremost from a place of authenticity. When I was doing sales training for companies, I thought when I would survey all the sales reps, I have a book back on my bookshelf behind me. I have a book about 3 inches thick of all the surveys that every sales rep that went through a class gave me feedback on. And one of the questions was, how would you describe the training class, and how would you describe Brian? And I started reading these surveys, and I kept seeing the word inspirational, motivational. I thought I was going to see stuff like, wow, I can really close now. But it was inspirational, motivational. And I thought, wow, what people are telling me I'm an inspirational person. What if I just did more of that? What if I became an inspirational leader? And that's when my personal career really took off. And I think that we have to be honest with who ourselves are. We have to lead from a place of authenticity, because only authenticity can be consistent. If we lead from a place that isn't truly who we are, now, mind you, on that note, even though it's important to be yourself, but we also must be aware that a leader knows the echo of their voice. And if a leader is stressed out, in my opinion, leaders don't have bad days. Because your team will decide what type of day they have based on how my leader is doing. If the leader feels stressed out, the team will feel stressed out. If the leader feels angry, the team will be afraid to bring things to the leader. A leader never has a bad day and is also aware of the echo of their voice.
Gosh, and that is such a high energy position to be in. And I found the same thing where, you're probably sitting there, you might not be having a good day, but outside looking in, it needs to be a good day because you have a team to provide for. You have a culture to manage.
That's
and
right.
You can't be the cause of your culture suck.
That's right. You can't be the stress point. You can't give people more stress.
You can't be the problem. Yeah. I think of the book, like when you're doing leadership, and it's a Christian marriage book. And, I went through all this premarital counseling 7 years ago now, or whatever it was when we got married, and Love and Respect. And I remember reading this book being like, when is this ever going to be applicable? And it turns out this dang book is applicable in almost every relationship I have. If you give people the respect, they're going to treat you with love. If you give people love, they're going to start respecting you, And that's obviously the very dumbed down version of that book. It was a big book. But I feel like just genuinely understanding the human condition and having empathy and giving people really the security to grow in your business. Because we hire a lot of people, like my sales team does not come from this industry. I hired off of core values. I hired off of this person's a rock star. Yep. They have, commitment. They're genuine. They're authentic. I am not worried about this person in a homeowner's home. They just need to understand what they're selling now, but they have all the other tools. They have the raw materials to be really great at this. Actually, most of the people in our front end don't come from construction. And I think honestly, it's a value add to our processes because they, one, have a really fresh lens coming in and being able to empathize with homeowners, but also construction, if you're hiring someone from another trade person, you're inheriting all of those habits as well, right?
Yeah, there are plenty of studies that show that success is not necessarily portable either. Just because somebody was a star at another business, I know I've been guilty of, I want to hire their top salesperson. And it's a colliding culture. They bring a totally different culture to the business, and it doesn't always work out. And just because they were successful somewhere else doesn't mean they're going to be successful with you. And so to your point, Ryan, if you can grow people, you become limitless.
Yeah, I'd love to become a training organization. I love that. So
yeah.
I heard a little like hot buzzword the other day. Like, I'm technically a visionary, right? It sounds like you're an inspirational leader, a visionary as well.
Sure.
I mean, obviously you had the vision to create what you created and you got to the finish line, which is incredible. Most of us don't get there, right? Most of us, the business fails. In 2008, a black swan happens. Things happen, life happens. But what I was reading through the other day, it was talking about vision and employees and how the visionary, the leader of the organization, needs to have a vision big enough for everyone else's personal goals to fit under it, right? You need to have the audacity, if you will, to take on your vision and really drive forward and motivate everyone under you to be like, wow, if we get here, I'm good, right? And I believe we can get there. So when it comes to vision, how are you translating that to your employees to where you're not some psycho screaming from the top of a hillside, which sometimes I feel like I am? And how do you really get to the execution? How do you get people to buy in?
Yeah. Let's just pretend for a moment, Ryan, that you joined our business and it's your first day in the organization. When I have, again, 600 employees and all combined about $150 million in revenue, so we're doing a lot of projects, right? I can't interview people. I can't be the person doing the hiring. That's not my role. But it is my role to tell everybody one story. And the story I tell every new hire is this, and I'm just going to tell it to you. But before I do, are you a sports fan, Ryan?
I am.
What team? What sport?
Well, football, I'm a Raider fan.
Okay.
Baseball, right. A's.
All right.
Don't watch basketball much.
So we can all admit that athletes today are playing at a much higher rate, a much higher level than they used to 20, 30 years ago. And they're setting records like crazy. They're just setting records like crazy. And we expect whatever records they set today, sooner or later, are going to get broken. We expect that, right? Sooner or later, somebody's going to break Tom Brady's record or, it's just going to get... That wasn't always the case. There was a sports record in the books. And in my personal opinion, it was the most transformational and meaningful sports record of all time. What made it so significant is that I could have filled up an auditorium with doctors, and they would have all agreed that what happened on this particular day would have been impossible. They would have said the human body can't do it, and that's why the record would never happen. They would have said the legs aren't strong enough and the lungs aren't big enough. On May 6th, 1954, Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile. Nobody thought the human body could until he did. But once Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile, within the next 12 months, 8 more people ran a 4-minute mile. You see, what Roger Bannister really did is he inspired a generation to accomplish something greater than people ever thought possible before. As a business owner, if somebody wants to work with me and they want a job, I'm happy to pay them. If they want a career, we're happy to advance them. But what we truly hope for them is that this is a moment in time where they chase their 4-minute mile. No matter how big and how crazy it might be, that this is their 4-minute mile, and they look at this time as more than just a career, that it was truly a pivot point in their life. And it's my role as the owner to help you find your 4-minute mile. And that's how we do it.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Inspirational. I love it.
Yeah.
So now executing your vision. And let's start with here. Let's start with the beginning. When you started Tundraland, was this something you put on the board? Was this like, I'm going to have X, Y, and Z. I'm calling my shot, and I'm going to get there in 5 years, 10 years, and that's how it's going to be? Or did you kind of go with the flow and just build this out as it happened?
Yeah, we started selling sunrooms, and I'll share with you in the first probably I was in month five, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table in this customer's home. I won't say his name and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and it's a $40,000 sunroom. And he gets up to talk to his other half about the project. I'm trying to close him. And I thought to myself, well, if he buys this project, I'm still in business. And if he doesn't, I guess I'm going to close. It was that close. So no, there wasn't this grand master plan. But but a few things I did right early on. The one thing I did was I set up a separate bank account, and every single dollar I collected, whether it was a $100 check or a $5,000 check, 7% of every single check went into a separate account, and that was my marketing budget. Because I always wanted, because I know that if I don't market, I'm not going to grow a business. And then the second thing is I needed to hire to my weaknesses as quickly as possible. We had a grand vision. I remember like it was yesterday. I took my production manager out in the back of the warehouse, and I said to him, boy, there's no big whale in this market. Maybe one day we could be a $10 million business. That's what we should really chase. I mean, $10 million, that would be a bad month once the business got built out. And anyway, it's just, so the vision wasn't necessarily how much volume we want to do. It's how do we surround ourselves with the right people? How do we chase alignment so that we all think the same way, believe the same thing, and then together as a team, what can we really do with this thing? And that's when it really started to grow.
I love that. I've had that moment as well when you're sitting there in a homeowner's house, and it's like, man, if I don't sell this, we're in trouble.
That's right.
This is bad. This is going to be bad.
Yeah.
So I remember you talked about communication a little bit ago, and like the great kind of misconception of it is that it was communicated. How did you solve that problem? Because I mean, you had you're doing 600-700 projects a month, 600
Correct.
employees.
Correct.
That's a lot of conversations. That's a lot of information from the salesperson to the operational staff.
Yeah.
Was that a simple, stupid process, or was that a hurdle you had to come through?
Well, look, it's constant. I will share with you that in my early days of rapid growth, when we were doing 100, 200 projects a month, even 50 projects a month, the complaint we would get from our customers is bad communication. We would get all these complaints about bad communication. And so we would put together, we need more systems. We need better scripts. We need more cadences for calling. We need to call in 5 times a week and not 2 times a week. In reality, I can ask 1,000 customers what good communication means, and I'll get 1,000 different opinions. So we said, okay, how do we really fix this communication problem? And we looked at it. It was from the point that somebody bought something to the time it was installed. It was this black hole of called a lead time, right? And we said, okay, what if the best way to solve the communication problem is to never have to talk to the customer again? What if the moment they buy a project from us, we give them an exact installation date? They get their exact installation date the moment they buy. Now, that sounds like a great idea, but to do that, we've got to have some pretty solid systems in our business to be able to execute on that flawlessly. But that's what we did, and we drove the business. So what we do is when we look at issues where there's a communication gap or we're transferring a phone call, why did we have to transfer that phone call? Like, how is this person not empowered to answer this customer's questions? So we would constantly challenge ourselves and say, how do we make this a better customer experience? And when you do that, by the way, if you think about like Cirque du Soleil, right? When Cirque du Soleil got rid of all the things that people didn't like about the circus, like the smell and the animals and the clowns and the bad food, and they said, we're going to get rid of all that stuff. We're going to keep the things people like about the circus, but then we're going to give them a beautiful environment, great food, and instead of charging $10 a ticket, we're going to charge $200 a ticket. The Cirque du Soleil created what's called the Blue Ocean Strategy. They created a Blue Ocean Strategy where there's nothing else around, no competitors around them. That's great, but eventually you have to move to what's called operational excellence. Scheduling at the kitchen table. With somebody can copy how we install a shower, but scheduling the exact installation date at point of sale, that's operational excellence, and it's a much stronger point of differentiation, and it's a better way to fend off competition. You chase operational excellence by constantly trying to break your business to fix your business, and find the holes in the business so you can patch them.
Yeah.
So
one of the things so in California, right? When we're signing a contract with a homeowner, we need to have the start date and the completion date on the contract.
Yep.
Technically, we need to have the contract price on the contract. Obviously, most states. Now, most contractors, they don't know when it's going to start, right? They don't know when it's going to finish. They don't know if that contract price is going to be the finished price when the job's done due to change orders and whatever it may be. So what we built in was a no change order guarantee and a no markup guarantee, where we do, after this point, there will be no change to this contract price unless you want to add something to the project.
Right. I love that. I think that's really smart.
And I mean, it makes sense. And that's been a huge inflection point in our market, because when homeowners are getting their 3, 4, 5 bids, we can just eat it up, right? We have homeowners showing us other contractors' bids, which is surprising. And they're using ours as a cornerstone, right? Because the 3-page bid they got from someone else, ours is 15 pages and every detail is in there. In my proposals, I tell our sales team, we need to know who, what, how many on every question that's going in. Who's going to be doing it? What are we doing? How are they going to do it? And how many of it's going in, right? And that's on every single line item.
And that's a value for the customer. I mean, that's a big deal for the customer.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a double-edged sword, because, they will say, well, you didn't tell us, is the screw going to be perpendicular or vertical, on the outlet covers. But we've been trying to standardize custom. And the closest company I've seen that could come to this, I got linked up through Pro Remodel actually, was Alair Homes. They're going to be out in Pinnacle as well. And I'm excited to talk to that guy, because standardizing custom with large tickets is something I don't think anyone's really got it down. I'm talking $250,000 to $500,000 job size, and having a process where you can give a homeowner, this is your start date, this is your completion date. Because every single city, every single county, there's different lead times for permits. There's different pre-construction methods. There's all this other stuff. So that's kind of the elusive thing I'm dealing with right now, is how to standardize such a custom environment.
Well, and that's that's a great question, because when I think about my early days in the sunroom business, the sunrooms was the more sunrooms you sell, it's a complex business, right? And complexity is really, really, first of all, it's easy to make a business complex. Okay. It's super easy to make a business complicated.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to simplify it. But the problem with complexity and a complex business and every job that's different is that you start to need unicorns as managers. Yeah. And unicorns are hard to find. So we grew by ripping out complexity, constantly ripping out the complexity inside of it. If you think about it, it's much easier just to schedule a job at point of sale. Everything we're doing was done in a day. Every job we sold is done in a day. It's a one-day job. And it just simple. So, if somebody wants a toilet, we don't do toilets, we do showers. If somebody wants a vanity, we don't do vanities, we do showers. And if, to the point, and then I think as a business, you have to say, it's great to say that. What are you willing to lose because of it? And we would lose jobs because we don't do everything, but we're better off staying in our lane and out.
What's the simple scales, fancy fails, right?
Yep.
It's
that's right.
The simple, repeatable services. And that's why you look at a company like Rebath as well. You look at Rebath.
Right.
They're huge.
That's right.
They're a huge company because their deliverables are so simple and it's so predictable every single time. There's a few different options.
Training easier, makes,
it does.
Pricing easier, the whole thing is still, So, but I think people have to decide. I'm confident you're going to crack the code on how to make a complex business standardized, and when you do, you'll change the world. You will.
That's the goal.
It's good. It's a great goal.
Well, Brian, man, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. I'm looking forward to seeing you out in Philly in the upcoming weeks. If people want to get a hold of you or follow you, where can they find you at online?
Yeah, you can always find me on Facebook, or my email address is bg@briangottlieb.com. I do have a new book coming out. Or they can go to briangottlieb.com, and if they want to sign up for the book that's coming out this fall, Forbes is publishing it. It should be really good. It's on culture, leadership, and business development specifically for this industry. I think that most business owners, would appreciate it. It's written in a friendly way and not in a preachy way. How about that?
Good. I'm looking forward to reading that. Well, Once again, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks,
and,
Ryan.
We'll button it up.
Yep. Good luck to you and your business, okay? Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, man.